Along the horizon, you can see a touch of yellow, mostly right over there. You can see the smokiness. Part of that is the mists of Humboldt, but part of it is from diesel generators.
They call it the Redwood Curtain, a region of California that's famous for its beauty, secrecy, and marijuana production. In these remote hills, pot growers power their operations with diesel generators. And one careless mistake can mean the kind of toxic spill that happened here 2 years ago.
You can smell the oil in the air. It's not gone 2 years later.
600 gallons of diesel polluted the creek. The health department says there have been more than 50 such spills, and those are just the ones that people came forward to report.
Because marijuana is illegal, we don't talk about it. The growers don't talk about the problems because they don't want people to think that marijuana is bad. It isn't bad. It's because it's illegal that bad things happen.
One grower would talk about it, but he asked us to conceal his identity.
When your neighbor lives above you, he has a spill, and you're getting your water from below him, your spring water, your drinking water, it kind of puts you on edge.
The different things for me that are disconcerting about the way in which marijuana is grown here is it's at an industrial level at this point.
Melinda Stone was born here and owns an organic farm on a remote mountain. The environmental impacts of marijuana, she says, are tied to its scale.
The kind of effluent that is leaching into the creeks all over the place has everything to do with this intense farming that's going on.
Anywhere that people are growing rurally, off the grid, they're growing with diesel generators. The hills of Humboldt light up with generators at night. You can hear the hum of them.
The cities are humming too. Humboldt State University researcher Peter Allstone studies energy use, and he noticed that the county has been using way more power than the rest of the state.
We saw a huge jump in residential energy, and being a resident of Humboldt County, we knew right away what we were looking at.
Indoor grows use a shocking amount of electricity.
For on-grid growing, we estimate that it's about 90 million kilowatt hours a year, and we estimate that it's about that much off the grid too, where people are using diesel generators to provide that electricity. That's 20% of all the electricity in Humboldt County.
That's enough to power 13,000 homes for a year. Marijuana is big business, but illegal growing isn't taxed. And some growers even get PG&E to subsidize their power bills.
They have very low reportable income, and so they qualify in many cases for this program that's subsidized by the entire ratepayer base.
We're not even the counties that grow the most marijuana. We're the ones that are sort of like culturally known. The bigger counties are actually the same counties that bring us our tomatoes and our vegetables, and that's even more heinous out there.
.75% of what we find is on public, state, or federal lands. So you're talking about campgrounds, state parks.
Places like this in the Sequoia National Forest. According to law enforcement, drug trafficking groups connected to Mexican cartels are diverting water from streams to irrigate their plants. Some poach animals when they get too close to the grow. And they use a lot of chemicals.
Trash, herbicides, pesticides, rodenticides, all of which can eventually leak into the water systems, affect critical habitat. So you're talking about an environmental issue that's significant.
Significant and often overlooked, because when law enforcement shows up at a grow like this one, they remove the plants and leave the trash and chemicals behind.
I wish we could come up with a better system or an easier one, a more efficient way to get that stuff out, because it's a lot that gets left behind.
And what's left behind is all the tools needed to start growing all over again. The California Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement says they don't have the time to do this cleanup, but other agencies do. The Forest Service says they don't have the money or the manpower to get to all the sites. So Shane Krogan and his all-volunteer crew come out to help finish the job.
We're looking at about probably a mile hike out.
This grow site is 50 miles from Yosemite. It was raided 2 years ago, and the debris has been sitting here ever since.
I get out here and I just start burying my head and trying to get this stuff up because it makes me feel really bad.
What's worse is that in some of the most remote, pristine places in California, many grows are never found. And of the ones that are, it's estimated that only about half get cleaned up by anyone at all. We spoke to 7 different state and federal agencies, and none of them were tracking the chemicals or studying what they do to the environment. Which raises another question. If pesticides and chemicals are bad for the land, what do they do to us?
Some of the pesticides are very toxic, and depending on the dose that's still present on the flowers, one can develop just acute flu-like symptoms, nausea, vomiting, things like that. And depending on dose, you can actually have some neurotoxic effects.
We went to the International Cannabis and Hemp Expo at the Cow Palace in San Francisco to ask people if they were worried about chemicals in their pot.
It shouldn't have like pesticides or, be grown unnaturally.
Well, I'm sure if they label them differently, as in, one used with pesticides and one without, I would obviously choose the one without.
But in a legally ambiguous industry, just beginning to find its public footing and with one foot still in the counterculture, how do you really keep track of what's safe and what isn't?
You can't really just take the word of a grower that they've grown organically.
Stephen D'Angelo started Harborside, a dispensary in Oakland where they take extra steps to screen their marijuana.
How can we really call it medicine if we don't know what's in it, if we don't know that it's safe?
So Harborside works with Steep Hill, a lab which will soon begin screening cannabis for pesticide residues.
We've taken it upon ourselves as a movement to start taking measures to address the safety and the health of our patients.
It all comes down to the fact that marijuana in California operates in a legal gray area.
Do you think legalization could potentially prevent some of this?
Really not going to go there with you.
It's a really difficult thing to say it's black or white or this is the easy fix or the easy answer as opposed to something else.
Marijuana is providing hundreds of millions of dollars to our local economy every year. That goes along with the spinning meters that you can see when you walk down the sidewalk.
Why do you think it's hard to talk about these things openly?
It's illegal. It's been an outlaw culture for almost 40 years now.
But in the last 40 years, marijuana has become a full-fledged industry, worth an estimated $14 billion in sales annually. No longer an illicit crop in the hills, it's a big business that's stepping into the light. And as it does, Californians are getting a clearer picture of how it's really impacting the state.